Hey folks! Alright, today we're going to do the answers to the Q&A. As soon as the washer stops making its little song. Alright now. Alright, so I posted a Q&A video January 10th, and now it's my birthday. So we're going to answer the questions. Since I have a bunch of free time today, I figure I might as well do it. Alright, so let's start with, I'm just going to do newest first on the video, and we're going to look at it here. So, Ryan Burns asks, would you ever switch back to using an AMD CPU in your main computer? I would consider it, considering that Ryzen, at least at the time making this video, looks pretty cool. The same guy who helped develop the Athlon 64, I believe, worked on this project, so that makes me very optimistic. I don't plan to rebuild my main computer for maybe the rest of the decade. I've gone to a mindset of I'm not going to do a complete rebuild or a complete overhaul again until my system starts to bottleneck, which is why I got the 1050 Ti for that particular system in the first place. So I would definitely consider it because Ryzen is looking good. It's looking actually competitive. So as long as the chipsets are stable and there isn't any quirky behavior like with especially the AMD FX stuff like the 990 FX chipset and the 970 chipset, they all acted kind of weird. So hopefully the chipsets are stable. So there's your answer to that. Delta Killa 45 asks, I have an AMD Sempron PC running Ubuntu 12.04 that I need to connect to the internet, but I don't have access to the router. Could I connect it to another PC with wireless internet to draw from that? Yes, you can. You can enable internet sharing. Depending on, I don't know if you're using Unity. Yeah, that would be using Unity because it's 12.04. If you go up to the little network manager thing in Ubuntu, there's a way to share a connection. You can share it from your wireless to the Ethernet, I believe. I've done that before. That's a video idea. I should do that for video sometime. Alright. Tech 101 has 4 questions. 1. What was the last non-HD CRT TV you have owned? I think it was a Trinitron. I picked up a Sony Trinitron TV from a thrift store, and I used to use it to play video games. But the TV started to act up. Like, the picture would go out sometimes. It was acting really strange, and I didn't want to deal with it, so I gave it back, and now I just use 720p TVs that have a ton of inputs. 2. Was there a time you thought you hoarded on Was there a time when you thought you hoarded onto too many computers? Yes, that time is right now when I'm thinking about moving. I got to get rid of a lot of stuff, especially stuff I don't use. It's just kind of ridiculous at this point. So there'll still be stuff to make videos of, I'm sure, but it's not going to be, you know, a rebuild or new stuff every month like I was doing for a while when I was just bored and had nothing better to do with my life. How many TVs do you own for yourself? Of my own, I have 2. I have an LG 32-inch TV, and I have a cheap little Apex, like a 19-20-inch TV. So the Apex is probably going to end up being my kitchen TV, and the LG TV is just going to be my regular, you know, living room type of TV. They're both 720p, by the way, because I found that a lot of 720p sets tend to have the inputs I need. So if you're thinking about that for yourself, keep that in mind. Number 4, what was the best thing you ever found at a thrift store or a secondhand shop? That would be the thing that this camera is sitting on, actually. This printer right here is the best thing I ever found at a thrift store. It's an HP LaserJet M1212 NFMFP. The only thing I needed to do was buy the output tray for it, buy a generic cartridge for it, and it works. The reason the person gave it to the thrift store is because the USB port broke off. So I just use the Ethernet port hooked up to my router, and it works fine. So that's the best thing I ever found at a thrift store. I've never gotten more use out of a thrifting find than that. I use it all the time. And so does my family, actually. I'm going to have to get them another printer when I move. Alright, so that's the end of Tech 101's questions. Nick Rudd asks, Dell or Lenovo for PCs? It depends which avenue you're looking for. When I think of laptops, if you're looking for a business class machine these days, I would say ThinkPad over Dell. If you're looking for an enthusiast grade machine like a Dell XPS or something, Dell for sure. The Dell XPS 13 is one of the most beautiful computers I've ever seen. And you can buy them with Ubuntu on them too, so you have options. It's kind of nice. Kyle's Tech Channel. 3 questions from him. Favorite classic Apple product? For pure nostalgia, the G4 Cube. I had one of those as my second ever computer, and I had a lot of memories on one of those. That was the first computer I connected to the internet with on my own. You know, I used to play a lot of Flash games on it, and Mac OS 9 and Mac OS 10 later on. It was a very important computer to me. That was the computer I learned and discovered Mac OS 10 on as well, because I had OS 10.1. So that computer is my favorite because it has a lot of nostalgic value for me. I did a lot of my computer discovery on there. That was the first time I used Virtual PC as well, was on that machine. So, there you go. Kyle's Tech Channel also asks, why were the videos addressing your sexuality removed? The videos were just not good. I just didn't like them. I looked back on them and I was just like, I can do better than that. And that was true of the first one I made. The first one I ever made about that was in 2007. I tried to remake them again and again, and I just never was happy with the results. I think this year I have a chance to remedy that because National Coming Out Day this year marks the 10th anniversary of me figuring myself out, actually. So, for those of you who don't know, I'm bisexual, and that's the subject I talked about. And, you know, I've kind of wrestled with that because this is a channel that's mostly about my hobbies rather than my personal life, so it kind of... I don't know. I think it's important to talk about, though, because I think this year will be the one that will work, because it'll be a retrospective, which I'm a lot better at. So I think sometime this year you'll see one that actually works decently. So that's why I removed them. I was just not happy with the videos. I thought I could do better than that, and I think I will this year. So Kyle's Tech Channel also asks, what do you consider your top restore/Goodwill find? The printer that I showed earlier, the LaserJet M1212 NF multifunction printer. Fantastic printer, by the way. Austin Patton 96 asks, are you Christian? I am, by the way. Not anymore. I grew up Episcopalian, though, so I went through the whole Sunday school and go to church every Sunday thing when I was a kid, and eventually, once I reached a certain age, I was just like, why am I doing this? I don't believe in this stuff. So I stopped. So I stopped going to church and all that stuff, and I'm not a very religious person these days. I'm an atheist, actually. But that's not to say I'm a militant person that thinks that everybody that has a faith is a complete moron or is completely nuts. You know, that's a very personal thing, and I think that's where it should stay. You know, that's what I am. But I did grow up Episcopalian, in case you're wondering, so I have a bit of background in that, I suppose. Mr. McGuire asks, where did you learn to fly and enjoying yourself? Funny man. SOCOM Seal 93 asks, why aren't you part of the Apple master race? Apple products are at least 1,000,000 times better than their counterparts, and every Apple product is a sheer stroke of brilliance. Oh, what legitimate argument can you make that defends using anything but Apple? Well, you know, if you don't use Apple, you're going to be left in the dust. I mean, doesn't anybody want to have a laptop with no ports? And a phone with no headphone jack? I mean, yeah. I can make a whole video talking about Apple and how good they used to be and how they're kind of losing their minds now. Daniel Beeston? I don't know how to pronounce that. CRTs are flat. Depends what you're looking for. I prefer CRTs for older computers. Let's say you have a DOS gaming rig from the 90s. That's where a CRT gives you a really good advantage because you get a lot less motion blur on a CRT with those older games. And I think that looks better, personally. But if CRTs give you a headache, don't use them. If you're going to use a vintage machine, though, look for a 15-inch 4x3 LCD. You will not be disappointed. So it depends what your use is for. On modern machines, I use a 1080p display where I can, if not higher than that. But on an old machine, I like CRTs. I don't. I think they both have their individual uses. Pascal Ampere, I guess, Amper, Pascal Amper asks, "What do you think about VR?" I think it's neat. Uh, I'm not like overly crazy about it. I think it's still kind of a not a gimmick, but it's kind of like I don't know. It's not. I think it's cool to play with, but it's not like useful in an everyday sense for just day to day stuff. I could definitely see it being useful in industries, but for like training or maybe NASA or something like that. I don't know. But for like everyday stuff, yeah. I think the gaming aspect of it is cool though. I really like that part. Um, I'm not all about it like a lot of tech people seem to be, but I think it's cool. I mean, Jack Stavros asks, "Are you lesbian for popcorn?" No. Are you kidding me? That's disgusting. I am asexual for cornflakes. BMX Brandon 2 asks, "What is your taste of music? Like, are you a vinyl or cassette collector?" Yes. My taste in music is pretty eclectic, actually. The only music I really don't like all that much is polka. Polka, I think, is annoying. Unless it's Weird Like Yankovic. That's because it's supposed to be funny, but polka I find annoying, really annoying. But you know, I'll listen to rap, hip hop, rock, classic rock, 80s pop, synthwave, vaporwave, future funk, minimal wave, new wave, punk. You know, I like when a genre does itself justice and does very well for itself. I think if you look at it, most genres of music, you can find something that you'll like, even if it's not very many. Like country for me, I don't like a whole lot of country, but there's a select few of the artists that I like Johnny Cash, for example. I love Johnny Cash. Um, Video Sans Frontier asks, "Who did you 2016 foreign vote?" You're just saying that to make me read it funny. Sansui350A asks, Road Geek has the same question as last year. Why aren't you using my utilities? Also, have you ever been in a Turkish prison? Memes, man. Dank memes. Nathaniel Knight. How long did you use dial-up if you ever used it? I'd been using it. When did I start using dial-up? It was probably in the early 2000s. Maybe 99, 2000, somewhere around there. I used it probably for a good 3 or 4 or 5 years. Because even when we got DSL in the early 2000s, it was only on down here on this machine, actually. Not this exact machine, but there was a computer here at the time that was the only one that had access to DSL. The otherwise, upstairs in my room, I used dial-up. What was your first desktop and laptop? My first desktop was a Macintosh. It was a Power Macintosh 6500. Sorry, that was the higher end model. You'll see Performa 6400s on eBay sometimes. The 6500, the Power Mac 6500, was the higher end model. That ran Mac OS 8 on it. I used that for years until I got my G4 Cube running OS 9. What is my current phone? I'll get it out for you. It is a OnePlus 3. I love this phone. Can't recommend the OnePlus 3 enough. What YouTubers do you watch? I watch a ton, man. I watch a lot of the same people that are sort of in our community: V Westlife, UXW Bill, Max Arcade, B Bishop, PCM. I also watch people like LGR, the 8-bit guy. You know, all the Tech Moan, all the usual tech suspects you could think of. I watch Jupiter Broadcasting for a lot of Linux and BSD stuff. I watch Brian Lunduke because he's the man. And I could go on and on, but that's just an idea of what I watch. I also watch things like Cinemassacre and other things like that. Who's in my subscriptions list? Al de Blasi, of course I watch him. Adam Korlick I watch. Ashens, Aussie 50. Tons of people. Yeah. Cassette Master. I watch so many. It would take forever to list all of them, but a lot of tech stuff, some music stuff. Random Gaming in HD is actually someone I recently subscribed to, and he's cool. He's pretty good. Go watch his channel. What is your favorite OS and why? Wow. Are you talking retrospective or currently? My favorite OS is probably macOS 10.4 Tiger. That was a very great operating system. I love that one. It's kind of between that and Windows 2000 for me, because it ran well. And what music do I listen to? I answered that already. The Kung Fu Robber. What would you suggest to someone that wanted to upgrade an older computer on a low budget? Buying a used Sandy Bridge Intel processor and motherboard and a new graphics card, or building an entirely new system with new components? It kind of depends. You can even mix that up if you want. Sandy Bridge stuff is cheap right now, so it would be smart to go for Sandy Bridge processors. Motherboards, I don't know. Some of them are harder to find these days, so it might actually be better to get a new motherboard and to buy used CPUs and RAM and stuff like that. That's what I do. That's what I do a lot of the time now. I'll buy a new motherboard, new RAM, new drives, and get the CPU used or something like that. It really depends on what you're trying to build. But if you can get Sandy Bridge stuff for cheaply, I would do it because the price is right now. Even at 6 years old, I'm using a Sandy Bridge machine to look at the comments I'm reading to you now, and it's still a rock star. I've been playing the latest games on it without an issue. How many computers do I own? Asks Colin583. Dude, I have no idea. It's that bad. That number's going to change fairly soon because I plan on moving, so I'll be able to tell you eventually, but right now I don't have a clue, dude. I really don't. Zaim Ahmed. Zaim Ahmed. I don't even know how to pronounce that. I have an AMD A8 7600. It is a good CPU, but only scores 5100 in pass mark, which isn't very good. I was wondering what Intel CPU the A8 is equivalent to, and what CPU should I replace it with if need be. I'd say they're pretty close to the Core i3 from Intel. Although the newest Kaby Lake Pentiums are also hyper-threaded, so you could go for a Kaby Lake Pentium or an older i3, or a newer i3, depending on what your preference is. But I would say the i3 is probably most equivalent to an AMD APU. Apple Person 1 asks, what is your main laptop most used? The ThinkPad T440p. That's the laptop I use the most. Second to that is probably my ThinkPad X230, which sits next to my bed and plays YouTube videos for me to fall asleep to pretty much every single day. DJ Tomstar, favorite vintage system? Game console or computer? I'm guessing that's console, so I'm going to say the Sega Genesis is probably my favorite. It's between anything in the 16-bit era, really. I like the Sega Genesis, I like the Super Nintendo, I like the TurboGrafx 16. I just love that era. It's a great era of games. Okay, working with this 10-minute limit on this camera is kind of annoying. Joe 40 Ounces asks, heard you talk about Second Life in passing in terms of mentioning Firestorm Viewer on your Linux bedside laptop and so on. What do you do in Second Life, and when did you start playing? I'm curious because I've been in Second Life since 2003. It's semi-rare to find people who still play. I know, right? Like, it's not a very popular thing, which in some ways is good, in some ways is bad. I started playing in 2007. I was brought in there by a friend of mine for the online Machinima Film Festival, and from then I thought it was fun. Like, I liked the idea of being able to pretty much do what I want with my character. It was like The Sims with freedom. And I kind of like that aspect. So I've been hanging out on there ever since, and I've had a lot of fun with it over the years. I like being able to own my own property on there, mess around with avatars a bunch. And the best part about this, the best use I've had for Second Life, is playing games with friends. You can play board games online with friends on there. Pictionary. Just the other day, I was playing Pictionary with a bunch of people, and it was the funniest thing ever. Some people drew some just ridiculous stuff, and it's really good for hanging out with friends. It's really good for that. But yeah, it's mostly just hanging out with buddies and doing stuff like that. Messing around with the games, the furniture, going places and hanging out. It's mostly just for buddies. You know, I've met a lot of good people on there, and so that's why I continue to be there. I know the precursor to Second Life was things like Mux, but Second Life I've been very fond of since 2007, and I plan to stay there for the foreseeable future. Live Free Studios asks, who did you vote for in 2016? If you didn't, who was your top pick? I'll start with that one because he's got a couple questions. Who did I vote for in 2016? Get ready to cringe. Get ready to cringe, folks. I voted for Jill Stein this year, as I am a Green Party supporter. And I didn't do it because I was a bitter Bernie person. I actually did it because I love the Green Party's platform. A lot of what they stand for is fantastic. Obviously, I don't think the candidates are the best, to be honest with you. But the platform is good, so I like the platform, and I'll continue to support it. And that's why. Why use a specific bedside computer over just a tote-around laptop? It's just easy to leave a machine there, not worry about it. Like I like doing that. I don't like having to move stuff around constantly. Just to when I want to go to bed, I just want to open the laptop, watch videos, fall asleep to the videos. That's all I want to do. So I just leave a laptop there because it's just easy. It's purpose built. It's just the way it is. Jonathan Dominic, I think is how you pronounce that. Sorry, man. What is best in life? Being happy, I would say, is what's best in life. Not being miserable. Radiation 8 asks, Mellow Yellow, Surge, or Mountain Dew? I'm not a soda drinker, but just by going by the names, Surge sounds cool and kind of 90s. So I'll go with that. Brandon Ryan, what are the most hated laptop and most hated desktop you have ever laid your hands on? Love the great work. Keep it up. Thanks, man. The most hated laptop, the Dell Inspiron 2500. That thing is a pile of junk. As far as desktops, I've never come across a desktop I really hate that much, to be honest. That's just the truth. It's more laptops. UXW Bill says, how's about 2 questions? Out of all the videos you've uploaded, what is your favorite? I was wondering if somebody's going to ask that. My favorite video that I've ever uploaded is the one where Grateful42 and I were building a machine, and Tiger Direct accidentally sent him 64 gigs of RAM. That was one of the funniest things that's ever happened, ever, in my lifetime. Close second is when we were doing MemTest on a machine, and there were spades in MemTest because the RAM was that bad. Generally, stuff with Grateful42 has been some of the most fun stuff ever. Amongst all the videos you've ever watched on YouTube, what is your favorite? That's a really tough one. I think my favorite, as far as classic YouTube videos, I'm gonna go for like bigger channels. So it's a College Humor video actually. As far as bigger people go, it is the Font Conference. Look up the College Humor Font Conference. If you're a geek like I am, it's hilarious. DK Lucas 1 asks, what do you think about ASRock motherboards? They've got a lot better this past decade, actually. They were kind of when they were a budget form of Asus, but now they're on their own, and they're really good. I have one on my main computer, and it's kind of taken the place of the sort of sub $100 gigabyte boards I used to buy all the time that are just super rock stable with H series chipsets for Intel and just work. The ASRock board's been very much the same as that. It's just been working nonstop without a real problem. So I think they're good right now. I'm liking what ASRock's been doing this past decade. Um, wow, that's a name. She's Naily. She's Naily. Why do I even try? Uh, what is the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow? What do you mean? African or European? Screw Isaac Chan asks, I'm using a T40S now, and I consider buying a refurbished X230 or X230T. Any opinion? The X230 is a fantastic machine. I have two of them. I use one of them daily as my bedside machine. The keyboard is very nice. They're very dependable, very durable. I highly recommend the X230. I don't know what the difference between the 230 and the 230T is, but I can definitely recommend the X series machines. The Power Mac Galaxy says, "It's Wednesday, my cigarette butts." Will Stonehawker asks, name a reason why you do not own a Sega Saturn nor plan to get one. I forget if I ever said I don't plan to get one. I probably did at some point. I wouldn't mind owning one, to be honest, because Daytona USA is on there, and I love that game. But I don't need one. I wouldn't use it much. That's the main reason that I've never planned on getting one, is because I know I wouldn't use it much. Because I don't even use the consoles I have all that much, to be honest with you. Jinzo Defiler also asks, what is the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow? African or European? Same question back to you. Vertutake asks, are you a knack god? I have no idea. Adrian Smith asks, what type of car do you drive? I drive a Subaru Forester. Subaru makes some damn good cars. I'll say that. They make some very nice cars. Chris Denny says, I have an IBM ThinkPad 770 with Windows 95 with Microsoft Plus, and I figured out how to edit the boot screen. Oh yeah, where you edit logo.sys. Yeah, you can make your boot screen pretty hilarious by doing that. Second question from him. Do you like to use TrackPoint or the touchpad on a laptop? I like to use the TrackPoint. Yeah, I like the TrackPoint better too. I'm a lot faster with a TrackPoint than I am with a touchpad, because on a touchpad you have to pick your finger up all the time, and I just think that's annoying. On the TrackPoint, you can just leave your finger on the nub, and I'm way faster with that. Third question, do you know what virtual machines are? And if you do, what software do you use for your virtual machines? Oh yeah, I've known about virtual machines for over 10 years now. I use, on Windows and Mac OS X, I tend to use VirtualBox. I do on Linux too sometimes, but on Linux there's also a solution called KVM that's really good, that I've used before. Kai says, timed within 10 minutes of MKBHD's Q&A video. That's odd. Winky face. Coincidence, dude. I've been planning to do this since last year. Christ, I've been subscribed to you for so long now. Shame I can't think of anything interesting to ask. Thanks for the content, bud. Well, thanks for watching, dude. Headset Guy asks, have you ever messed with any open source operating system operating systems that aren't Linux distros, BSD, ReactOS, etc.? If so, what are your thoughts on them? Yes, I have. I'm a complete operating system nut, if you couldn't tell already. FreeBSD and NetBSD are some of the BSDs I've messed with. GhostBSD as well, actually. FreeBSD is the one I'm the most impressed with because you can do a lot with it. It reminds me a little bit of using Debian. BSD is fantastic. I love BSD. ReactOS I've messed with. It barely works. That's my review of it. I've also messed with Haiku, which is a reverse engineering of BOS. BOS is really cool. I highly recommend checking that out if you haven't already. Deuce Lothster asks, when do you plan to upgrade to a DDR4 based computer? Also, how's your home file server holding up with the server grade hardware? When do I plan to upgrade to a DDR4 based computer? Probably when the computers I have start to become really bottlenecked. My rough guess would probably be towards the end of the decade, maybe 2019, 2020. You know, like once DDR4 has been around a little while, that's probably when I'm going to upgrade to it, because the stuff I have now is fine. I have 16 gigs of RAM in a lot of machines. I have 32 gigs in my main computer. I'm fine for a while. I don't really need to get anything else unless it's just to play around with. Glitchy asks, fave computer? My favorite computer. I'm going to go back and say the Apple Macintosh G4 Cube, because of pure nostalgia. PC Geek 486 asks, what is the worst computer you've owned? The Dell Inspiron 2500. I hate that machine. If you could keep one computer, what would it be? Probably my ThinkPad. My ThinkPad T440p is the one I would keep. Jeremy Johnson says, I am selling my Dell Latitude D600 notebook. Well, hopefully you get some bucks for that thing. XDQD asks, do you miss the old YouTube star ratings, old channel page, etc.? Yes, I do. It's kind of weird, because I don't know if I miss it or if it's nostalgia at this point, because I kind of miss the old content more than I do the old site. The site's whatever to me, but the way old content worked was better, because it was a little bit less corporate like it is now. It was a little more free range. It was nice. I liked that. I liked the old feeling of YouTube back in the mid to late 2000s. Although some of that's still there, like people that I've interacted with way back then I'm still talking to now, like V Westlife, for example. He used to put up with me being a complete idiot in the comments back in the day. So, yeah. Coles Tech, this is the last question, by the way. Coles Tech asks, what was your first computer /OS, and what was your most recent computer /OS? So, my first computer I answered already. That was the Power Macintosh 6500 with macOS 8.0. That computer lasted me for most of the late 90s. What was your most recent computer /OS? I guess you mean the newest? The newest in terms of hardware is my ThinkPad T450. That is running Windows 10 currently. I've run Linux on there before, but currently it's running Windows 10. And there you go. That's the Q&A for 2017. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know. Maybe I should do another one next year. I guess I will if you guys have other questions. So that was the Q&A for 2017. I will probably do another one next year. So if you guys have different questions next time, I'll be happy to answer them. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and have a good one, everybody. Ciao.